This video is going to discuss the MySQL improved extension, or mysqli, and conversion from MySQL to mysqli. So the MySQL improved extension provides us an object-oriented approach and better integration with the MySQL database through PHP. And we're going to come through and look at several of the items that we're going to use in this video. If we come and look at how we open a database, this is a typical MySQL approach. To change it to a mysqli approach, instead of the mysql_p connect, it would become a mysqli connect. And you'd still have localhost, which would be your 127.0.0.1, your login name, and then my password is scrolled off to the right there, so it's not on screen. So we've got mysqli connect here. On the next line, we would just put an I here for mysqli select database. So this is the name of my database in MySQL. And then the MySQL error becomes mysqli error. So for the most part, these changes are very small and easy to make. And that would finish out this open database connection. Let's go ahead and look at these in the manual. So we're going to look at mysqli connect, mysqli select DB, and mysqli error. I'm on php.net for the manual. You can just Google php.net space mysqli and you'll find yourself here. So mysqli_connect is an alias of construct, and you'll see the style here that we're using. If I follow this, here's an example just like the example that we would have had. Now we're not specifying the database here, we're just doing the location, the server, the username and the password, and then after that we use a mysqli select database. So again, that's under construct, we're using mysqli_connect. It's an easy conversion from MySQL connect. Let's look at select DB. So here's the style that we're using. And so mysqli select DB actually has to add the link from the line above. So actually, if we come back here, we're going to put $DB in there. And that's another change in MySQL_query. When you go to MySQLi_query, we've also got to pass it the database connection itself. So MySQLi select DB, we pass it this variable right here, along with the name of the database, and this one remains the same. So there we've got MySQL select DB. And then if we come back to look at the error, mysqli error, it's the last one on that page. If I go to close the database connection, all we've got to do there is put an I, so it becomes mysqli close, and that one will be done. And then if we come to a select page and start from the top, as we come down through here, you'll see here's our first one. MySQL_query would change to a MySQLi_query. But rather than passing it only the SQL statement, we have to pass it the database connection and the SQL statement. And you'll see the tooltip pop up there. So it says we've got to pass it the link to the database along with the query. So that's the biggest change that you have there, MySQLi query. We go down a little bit, there's a MySQL num rows, that becomes MySQLi num rows. If we come down a little bit, there's a MySQL fetch array, that becomes MySQLi fetch array. And just to do it again, there's another set on this page. So we've got a MySQL query, becomes a MySQLi query. And again, we have to pass it the link to the database along with the query itself. Again, MySQL numRows becomes MySQL I numRows. And again, MySQL fetch array becomes MySQL I fetch array. Down at the bottom, we've got a free result, and that would become MySQL I free result. If we come back here, we'll scroll down until we see, here's MySQL fetch array. So MySQL I underscore fetch array that we're using. Here's the free result, MySQL I free result that we used. Here's MySQL I query, where you pass it the link to the database and the SQL string itself. And then we've got in the result numRows, MySQL I numRows. So you can find examples of how to use all of these within the documentation there. Again, MySQL improved extension provides us an object-oriented method of connecting with the database. Most of what we are using is procedural methods. But if you've been using MySQL underscore, it's very easy to switch over to MySQL I underscore and continue on. So that covers all of our major items that we need for this video in MySQL I.